Hello, everyone, and welcome to Railings from Top to Bottom with Martha Hollowell. We've got quite a good conversation here happening with our webcast. So, Martha, I will pass things over to you.
Thanks, Corrine, and welcome, everyone. I'm glad that you could join us today. We are going to be, as I mentioned, railings from top to bottom or side to side, or whichever way you want to go. We're going to look at a wide variety of things from railings. I'm taking most of this content from our Autodesk Revit BIM Management book, Family and Template Creation. And so this is from the specific chapter 7, which is creating architectural specific families. Most of the book is covering, more things like how do you create component families and information like that. So, but this has actually got the part about creating the architectural specific items. As Corrine mentioned, my name is Martha Hollowell. I'm Learning Content Developer for Autodesk Products. My main job is to write everything Revit. So I work with Revit architecture, MEP, structure. We've written a landscape book as well using Revit for landscape. I also work with advanced steel, and I'm very happy to say that I'm going to be teaching an advanced steel and Revit structure class at Autodesk University this year. So if any of you are coming out there in November, please come on out. It's called something like, I forgot to write it down, but it's the Coming Convergence, Revit structure, and advanced steel. So we're going to be looking at the information where they overlap and how you use one versus the other and that sort of thing. So anyway, thank you for coming today, and let's get started. So first of all, let's see if it's, there it goes, it went forward. As I mentioned, this is architecture-specific families. We cover other items in this, but we're going to look in this particular case about creating railing types. We're going to do the rails, balusters, posts, and panels. So there's all sorts of bits and pieces of what you're doing when you're creating railings. So railings are made up of multiple families and profiles, which is a type of family, and I'll explain more about this either. And before we actually get started on the pieces of them, it is good to know railings are easy to use but hard to customize. And the reason I'll say that is because there's just so many options that you can do in the railings. So as we go along, I know I'm going to be throwing a lot of stuff at you, but hopefully you will grasp each section and come out stronger as you do it. So what we have here are railings are made up of, like I said, multiple families and profiles. And all of these families and profiles need to be in the project you're working on before you create the railing, and I'll show you a lot about that in just a few minutes. What we've got posts, so here's a post on the end. We've got rails. Rails are horizontal items, and we'll talk a lot about rails because there's a lot happening. Balusters, we have like this one here is our vertical items, and you can also have baluster panels, such as this here in the center, that is just a wider baluster, really, is what you're looking at here. Now, the railings, or the posts, balusters, and baluster panels are all families. You create them just like you would create other component families. There's some specialty tools to them, but they are basically how you create other families. But all of your horizontal members, your rails, are actually made from profiles. So when you're creating a rail, you actually are drawing just a 2D item, and that's applied to a 3D sweep, as you can see in this particular case. And the rails that we're showing here are two separate items called a top rail and a handrail. It's this one that's not highlighted there. Is a handrail. So, if you're doing a guardrail and handrail or only doing a handrail, you actually are using those. So any of the rails, top rail, handrail, and all of your horizontal rail items, those are all made from profiles. Whereas your baluster, post, and panel families are actually 3D components. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, like there's a little bit of an angle going on, a strange angle going on. they're very complex to create from scratch. So a lot of times you might want to find one, okay, here's a baluster I liked, and here it's modified. You know, I just moved some things around without changing all of the detailing. And you can see over here, this is the panel elevation. If you're creating one of these from scratch, you can see that slope angle that's in there. That's what causes a lot of the problems when you're creating your baluster post and panel families, because it needs to change according to whatever your angle of whatever you're putting the railing on is. So what I'm going to spend the most time on today is looking at creating railing types, and we're going to go through all the different parts of it, including the construction, the top rail, handrail, and some other features that don't show in this particular item. So I'm going to show you a couple more slides, and then I'm going to get into doing a bit of examples right in Revit. So I just wanted to mention there's of the types of things that you're going to find in here. You're going to be editing the rail structure. The rail structure is your horizontal members. We're going to also edit the baluster placement, and that is your vertical members. Then we're going to set up the top rail and the handrail. And the confusing part about this is it's actually another level of type. So if we have here, this is the guardrail pipe. That's one of the default ones that comes with Revit. That's a railing type, the whole railing. But you use a specific top rail, and you use a specific handrail. And these are two separate items that you're working with. So you do need to know that what you're using. And when you pick on this one, so like this is that circular 1.5 handrail, it actually brings up a whole nother type properties tool or dialog box that you're going to be filling out as well. And we're going to be talking about all these different bits and pieces. Now, I had a question come in ahead of time and from Stephen, and I'm just going to read you his question, and I'm going to mention what I hope to answer. From Stephen, it says, it comes at a great time. I have a set of drawings due next week, and my stair, rail, top, and bottom extensions are somehow offset. And I don't know if you can see right there. We've got a problem right there. Something's going on. He sent me these sections so you can see how they do. So I think we're going to answer this question as we go through, and because I'm going to create a handrail like this, a wall-based handrail, one of the things that I'm going to be showing. And also, hopefully, I'm going to talk a little bit about these brackets. You can see these here and how to modify them. It's not easy, but at least we can get some work done. And finally, if we have time, this is the one that I'm not positive we'll get to. This is talking about panels and also some customization of the families. This is actually the practice that's in our book. So if we have time, I'm going to talk about creating the custom railings. But first, I want to get us through the basic process of what we're doing. So I'm going to open up Revit. And here's our Revit. I did a little bit of work ahead of time. Basically, all I did was I created a stair with the default railing. I had a little platform out here. I had to put a door in. There was just a wall there. It's like, you've got to have a door. You've got to get out of here somewhere. But anyway, I put a door in. Just so you'll know what I've got here, this is a wall. I just made it transparent so we can see the railings that are behind it. So here's my floor plan over here and my 3D plan, and we're going to take a look at these railings. And I've changed the color, by the way, to consistent colors because one of the things I'm going to do is change materials so you can just see the change of what we're doing as I'm creating the railings. So first of all, I'm going to come in here a little bit closer and take a look at this railing. Like I said, this was the default. That was just the simplest thing I could do. I didn't make any changes. I'm using the default architectural template in imperial units, very similar in metric as well. And I'm going to select this railing on this side. Now, the first thing I want is I actually wanted this to be up on top of the support there. And you could actually do that when you made the railing, and I just missed it as I was coming in. But that's no big problem, because the first thing we can do to change it is come over here to Properties. So this is the instance property. This is only going to modify this one handrail, and I can make the offset from the path to be -1 inch. I'm going to hit Apply, and it should work. Let's see. Yes, there we go. You can see it moved up over there. It did not change this one, though, because that was an instance property. It's not one of the other properties. So to change this one, I need to select it and also do a -1 inch. And I had figured out what that number was earlier, so you didn't have to worry about me trying different sizes. But that was the first thing that I wanted to do there. So most of what we're going to do, though, now is in our main type properties. We're going to edit the type, and we're going to do a number of levels of changes. Now, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and select this. I'm going to click Edit Type, and I've got my Type Properties dialog box. This is for my handrail rectangular. The very first thing I need to do is change that. I need to duplicate it and make a custom. So I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to call it Custom Railing. And now I can make some changes to this without worrying about losing out what I was planning to do. So I wanted to point out we do have the construction. We're going to talk about the rail structure here, baluster placement, things like that. We also have the top rail, and you'll notice that this one right now is using a top rail, and its height is at 3 feet. And at the moment, it is not using a handrail. And you can have, by the way, more than one handrail. There's also all the identity data information. Of course, that's what you can fill out as you need to. We're not going to worry about identity data. So we're going to, first of all, look at the construction part. This railing height, you'll notice that it is grayed out. I can't change that here. It's actually controlled by the top rail. Let's say I wanted to create a guardrail. And so that would be, in this case, 3'6". And now you can see my railing height has actually changed. And I'm going to click OK. There you go. You can see the change of what it did. Now, to make it a little bit easier so I don't have to keep hitting click OK and to see the updates, I'm going to come down here and open up my preview. And I'm going to work in here for just a minute because we'll be able to see the changes as I make them in this preview. And so that was this button down here. I clicked Preview so I can see the changes. Now, I mentioned, first of all, that we wanted to use a top rail, and so we've got that going on right now. We've got a height. I can go ahead also and add a handrail. Right now it's set to none, but I'm going to come in and just assign a handrail to it. And when I do that, you can see that little Browse button that always tells you, oh, we're going to come up with another Properties dialog box. And so here's my Type Properties dialog box for the handrail type. I have some that are already available. I'm just going to go to my circular 1.5 right now and click OK. I'm going to come back in later and modify that. So I'm clicking the Apply button. Position would help if I set the position. I'm going to set it to the left and apply that. There we go. Now we can see there's the handrail. So it's just hanging out there at the moment, but you can see these are separate items, horizontal items, from the main construction, because that's kind of important, as we'll see. Now I want to go ahead and talk about the horizontal. We're going to first do the rail structure, and I'm hovering over, I'm seeing my little tooltip there. You can see that in the tooltip, whoops, it's going to go away. We're looking at the horizontal members of this. And when I click this Edit button, it brings up my custom railing, non-continuous. I still have this open at the moment. And I don't have any horizontal members. So because in this particular case, all of mine are vertical members except for the top rail and the handrail. So I'm going to insert one. I'm going to call it bottom rail. And it is important to name these, as you'll see in the next section, if you're going to be using it. And I'm going to change this height to 4 inches. And at the moment, I just have the default profile. I could come in here and assign it to the same thing as the handrail, or one of the other choices. I could do a 2x2 or a square handrail. These are all, because remember they're horizontal, these are all profiles that I'm selecting. So I'm going to just go ahead and say, I'm going to say square handrail. Let's apply that. There you go. You can see it's coming in. So that's going to be at the bottom of it. And this is also where I need to assign the material for this. And I'm going to be assigning some material so you can see the changes that I'm making as we go along. So I'm going to come here and click my material. It brings up the choices that I have. I'm going to have cherry and click OK so that this is going to apply that. Now, it's not pretty yet because we've got a lot of things happening that I'm still going to make some additional changes. But you can see now that I have that cherry is there, and we now have an additional horizontal member. So now I'm ready to come back and modify my baluster placements. And as you can see from the picture here, these are the ones that are at the ends and any place where there's a break in the railing. And so I'm going to click Edit for this one. This one's a lot more complex, a lot more going on in this particular one, but it's really not as hard as it looks once you start recognizing what's happening. And it does help that I'm going to pick over here up here in my main pattern. So it's divided into main pattern, which you can see here when I picked in this point right here, it highlighted all the blue. So that's the main pattern. Whereas here, there we go, my baluster, there's my start post. These are the posts. So there's my start post and my end post. You can see that just highlighted. This one's not showing a set corner post because there's no corner post in this particular 3D view. But you can see that I think it really helps to have that view that where we can see, like, here's our main pattern and here's our posts. So everything that goes up here is your main pattern. Everything that goes down here are your posts. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to change, so I've got my regular baluster that's coming in here. It's a baluster square. We're going to leave that alone. I'm going to change, though, my base. And so instead of the host, which would be either the stair or the floor or the topography, you could actually put it on topography. You can put it on the top of walls now. Lots of places you can put railings that they've upgraded in the last couple of years. I'm going to change it to my new bottom rail choice and click Apply. So you can see now my posts are still going down to the host, but now my bottom rail is there and I've modified the base. I can also change this if I had another rail in there and I only wanted it to go to a certain height. You know, I could change that, but right now I'm going to leave it to the top rail element. But that's how you would change it. So this is the top. You could also have a base offset, so if you did want it a certain distance away from whatever the base rail that you're choosing, so there's the top. And then this one right here, this 4 inches, that's how far they are apart. So if I put them in here 6 inches and click Apply, you can see they spaced out a little bit further, but that would offend numerous what am I trying to think of? I'm just going blank on the term. But anyway, you can't have 6 inches between your rails. The code. Code is 4 inches. So I'm going to set it back to 4 inches. Again, you can come in here and do some additional tweaking, and sometimes you might have to do exactly all that tweaking still happens. Because you can do things like breaking the pattern, like at each segment end, or if there's angles that are greater than a certain amount, you can have them break pattern never. Most of the time you'll do it at each segment end, and that will, then the pattern will repeat with your posts and such like that. Just a quick tip there is if you do want a post along the line, you actually need to split your rail. And I'll try to remember to show you that a little bit later. So I'm going to leave it right now as at each segment end. We're also leaving it at the justifying at the beginning. Again, you can have some of these changes depending on what you're working on. It might be you want it to be centered. I'm not spreading the pattern to fit in this case, but in another option you might need that. So again, I'm just going to leave my justification to the beginning, and right now I have no additional fill length that I need to worry about because the 4 inches is basically fixing that. So we do have all of these different items that are set up like that. Now, just so you'll know, if I did want to add another baluster in, I have to duplicate an existing one and then make all the modifications. So even if I wanted to add in a panel, for example, I would have to duplicate. So it's not just an add, it's a duplicate. But it's basically the same thing as adding. I can, by the way, use balusters per tread on stairs and how many I want. So that's another option as opposed to doing a pattern up here. That's a different option if you're working with those. Now I'm going to come down here also to my post family and just make a couple changes. I'm going to make them bigger. So I want to have a nice square. I'm going to do a 2-inch square. And those were already loaded in my system, so I had those already. I'm going to apply it, and notice that my start post changes. So now I have a nice thick start post, but I have to tell the same thing for my end post. So there's my baluster square, and even though it's not going to show up here in my preview, when I do have a corner post, I want that, and I want it to also be the baluster square. I am having it go from the host up to the top rail. So that's how tall I want it to be. But I am going to change the spacing right here. And I can't remember, I think I wanted it to be 1 inch. Let me just check that and apply. Yeah, see there, you can see how it extended now. So here's, this one's not long enough, it's just 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to do -1 inch and apply that, and now that's covering it up a bit better. Another thing I could do is actually do a top offset. So let's say, for example, I want that to be 2 inches above. You can see how that changed there, and then here I might want to change the spacing then to 0 or -1. Let's see. -1 inch. Let me see if that works. Yeah, there we go. Now I might be having some other changes happening with that, so I'm going to just leave it right now. Let's see. Actually, do I want to do that? Well, let's see what it does. Why not? I might leave it as this, and we can then see what this does, because it's always good to check these things out. So I've gone ahead and I'm going to leave, by the way, the end post differently so we can actually see what that looks like in this, and then normally you'd come back and make those the same. I'm going to click OK now and OK again, and we now have the beginning of our new railing. Something's not there right, but anyway, we'll see if we can't figure out what the changes are here. But there we can go. As you can see here, this is the top part here. Doesn't have that extension, but this one does. I think I need to make it a change so it goes down lower, and I am not positive what that is at the moment. I made some changes I hadn't done in my first plan. But anyway, one more thing I wanted to show here. Oh, no, let's see. I do want to go into the top rail and the handrail now. So we have our first things that we have done here, we have just been working on editing the type, and we've been doing the rail structure and the baluster placement. And so these are some of the other options that you can change with those as we're doing it right now. And I'm just going to go back here and set my spacing here to 1 inch again. And my offset here, supply. Yeah, that's what I want it to look like. That way it'll do what I'm expecting it to do a little bit better. Okay, there we go. That's what I was expecting. So I wanted it to actually be at the very end here, as opposed to when I changed the offset, it had sent it out. Okay. Now, actually, why don't I first ask if there are any questions, because this was a lot already before I get to top rails and handrails. Corrine, have we got any questions that have come in?
Hi, Martha. Yes, we do have a couple questions, actually.
Okay.
So now would be maybe a good time. And the first one came in at about 15 minutes after 11, just to give you a time reference on that one. And Greg is asking, when offsetting the banister, did it place it on the stringer or in it?
So this one, when we're doing it here with this offset from path, it actually is placing it on the stringer in this case. Now, does that always happen? Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's not actually part of the stringer. You can see it when I've selected it there, if that shows.
Okay. Thank you. The other one here, let's see if we can, I think there might be a word missing, but it says, how do you do a main post every 4 feet with those in between go to the bottom,
Okay, so there was that question. So you can see right now that this only has posts at the corners and the beginning and ending. And so what I actually have to do is modify my railing path. So I'm selecting my railing path right here, and I'm editing it. And to actually bring in, so let's say I want to have a post midway up this, I actually need to come in and break it. So I'm going to break it right there. And you could make that whatever length it is. Like, let's say you want this to be 4 feet. Actually, I'll bring it down. There's 4 feet down. I'll click OK, and you can see now I actually have that heftier post right in here. So what I had to do in that case was actually break the path in half. Okay.
Okay. Would you like one more? Someone is asking, and again, I'm not technical here, but they're asking, will you show how to do an ADA extension?
Yes. Good. Any other questions on?
So that was the only other question that I thought.
Okay.
I want to make sure I was reading it correctly. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So ADA is Americans with Disabilities Act, or something like that. And it's you need to be able to have an extension that happens on your handrail. So, which is where I'm going next.
Excellent. Well, good job. There we go. That was a nice segue. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So as I showed you before, you have the top rail and the handrail are different animals than the rest of your type. So if I've come in here and I've edited my type, I've actually got these types here for my top rail and my handrail. Now, you need to, let me see. You can always do more than one, there's always more than one way to get things, which is kind of dangerous. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you through type properties how to make these modifications, and then I'm going to show you 2 other ways to do them too, because sometimes they're a little bit, it's easier to use it one way or the other. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to modify my top rail, and I'm going to duplicate it because, again, I don't want to mess up this rectangular 2x2 if I'm using this in another style. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to call it rectangular 2x2 cherry. And basically all I'm going to do right now is just change the material for it. So I'm in my rectangular 2x2 cherry. I'm going to come back and talk about these things in a minute, but right now I'm just going to come here and change my category. I'm going to use my little cherry happening here, and I'm going to come back and talk about all these things in just a minute. But what I want you to see right now when I apply it is there we go, we can see that it changed color. So now that's my top rail. I made a change to my top rail, and I have that one that I'm working on. The same thing is true with the handrail. So I'm going to come in here and click. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to call this one cherry too for lack of more other ideas. Coming to by category, clicking on cherry, clicking OK, clicking OK. Like I said, I'm going to come back to these guys in just a second. So now in my custom railing, I've modified the top rail and handrail to using a different method. And now I'm going to click OK and come out of this. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want to be able you to see some of the changes that I'm going to make directly. And when I'm doing that, I'm going to come up here for just a minute. We can see that when I hover over the railing and I select the railing, I'm selecting the whole custom railing. But I can also hover and hold down my tab key and select just the top rail. So I'm selecting just the top rail, and I can edit that type. So now I'm in this rectangular 2x2 cherry. Now I can't duplicate and all that other stuff. That's why I went ahead and duplicated it first. But I can now make changes to it, and you'll be able to see it a whole lot easier. I'm going to move that over as I'm working right now. So the first thing I want to show you here is the transition. And you can see how we've got a kind of tight transition both at this corner and at this corner. And so the gooseneck is the typical transition when you have a complex railing structure. If I come in here and I change it to none and click apply, I'm going to get a railings not continuous. So we've got a break. You can see here we've got a sharply angled transition, and there's some options you can do. I'm going to say OK because I want you to see what it looks like. So we've actually got our railings coming here OK. That's not too bad. But here we've got a break. Now, in this particular case, if the gooseneck isn't working, you might have to go ahead and create like a custom post or something like that to get the transition you're expecting. And you can have kind of like a custom post that has part of a railing on it. And there's lots of things you can do. But these are kind of complex situations that may not be able to be done directly within the railing command. But in this case, gooseneck is working, and so I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And so you can see, we're going to just leave that happening here. And let's see, anything else? Oh, I want to show you this miter change as well, but I want to show that in a different location. So like right now, I'm just going to leave that and click it OK. And we've basically, in this case, I left the top rail alone. I didn't make changes to it. Now I want to change the handrail. And so again, I'm hovering over it. I'm clicking Tab until I select it. And I can now edit the type. And here I'm going to do a lot more changes. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to change it from a miter. So here we can see here's our term right here to a fillet. And I'm going to set the fillet radius. I'm going to try 4 inches. Let's see. Is that going to do what I want it to do? May not be showing it. Let me just zoom in here. Yeah, I think that transition doesn't like it. Let me change here. I'm going to come over here. This is my it's still the original handrail rectangular, and I'm going to change it to my custom railing. There you go. There you can see it better. So this is a better example of where the fillet is showing. So here's my railing coming around with the fillet. It does not work on the top rail with the posts there, just so you'll know. It's, again, some of these changes you just have to do a little bit of finagling around. But you can see that there's that fillet there. This one I might have to have a bigger fillet, or let's see, highlight, tab. So there we go. There we go. Got it that time. That may be, I might in this case need to have a different connection. You can see that connection isn't looking very good here. So I'm going to edit this type, and I'm going to turn this right now back to a miter as well. So if I wanted to have two different ones here, so that if this, so there you can see now it's back to miter. Let's say on this one I did want to have a curve, and this one I didn't. I'd need to have two different railing types. So not only just railing types, but also handrail types, because they are modified accordingly. So that's just one of the things you need to know. You would actually have to have multiple handrail types and multiple railing types if you wanted to have, one railing have the curve and one not, depending on how you're working with that. Now I'm going to come down to the other end, and another big part of doing a handrail is modifying this extension. So I've still got it selected, and I've only got the handrail selected, so I'm coming back to Edit Type. Let me move it over a little bit. Edit Type. And what now I'm going to come down in here into the extension sections. So we have extensions for beginning or bottom, and end and top. You can have them separate. We have what's called terminations, and you will hear me constantly call them terminators, because I just do, and supports. And so we're going to look at these options that we have here. First of all, the extension style. This answers some of the ADA questions. I can come in here and put out just a straight length, an extension. And this extension is part of the railing type, the handrail type, so it's coming out and it's giving me that particular extension. There are several different extension styles that you can choose from. That's none. It's just coming out straight. If you want it to, you can come and change it so that it's the wall. Whoops, I just hit the wrong button. Hold on just a minute. Let me go back to none. I want my top bottom, my beginning bottom here. I can set it to wall and click Apply. You can see it's turned the corner automatically. So you have a choice with that one so that it goes to the wall. We still have this length. Oh, and by the way, let me show you the plus tread depth as well and apply that. So you can see it's gone down one more line and then out. And in this case, sometimes you don't need to have the length. Kind of depends on what you're doing. So this one is going down and into the wall. Again, a lot of this is fiddling around with it to see how best it's going to work for what you need it to do. Right now I'm just going to take off the tread depth so that it's ending right here. Again, that depends on what your design and the situation that you're working in, whether you use that or not. I'm going to click OK before I show you these other things, just to show you as well. See up at the top, nothing's happening. That's kind of important to know because of the way I'm editing this at the moment. Now, if I want to have it up at the top, I'll come here and do my end top bottom. Right now, I'm just going to leave that alone. Another thing that another type I can have is called floor, and here I'm applying that. You can see it goes down to the floor. And the third method is post, and it comes back as if it was turning into the post. This is a case where you might be doing this with the top rail, and it's not a guardrail. So we've got, right now I've got a handrail and a guardrail. So in this case, I could do this on the top rail as well, then this would come back to the post. Right now this is coming back to nothingness because there is nothing there. So I'm not going to use that in this particular case. I think I'm going to, let me show you one other thing with floor. So with here, let me get back to my floor style. There's the termination. We have, there's only one loaded right now that comes with Revit, termination wood rectangular. I'm going to apply that. You can see there's my termination down at the bottom. And again, right now I'm not doing any termination at the top, though I could if I wanted to. All right. I'm going to come back to supports in just a minute because they are a little bit of a challenge. So I'm going to click OK. And so here we have a stair that now has modifications to its construction, to its top rail, and to its handrail. And you can make some additional changes as you go along as well. Okay. Is it 11:43 already?
It is.
Oh my gosh. So, really, really quick. I want to do a handrail, so a wall handrail. So let me really quickly show you this one. I'm going to edit this type, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm just going to call this my handrail, or wall handrail. I'll call it wall handrail. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to come back and change. I'm going to get rid of my bottom rail. I'm just coming in here and deleting it. Yeah, it's okay because I'm going to delete everything else too. I'm coming in here and deleting all of my balusters. I'm going to change them to none. I'm not going to have any posts. So this particular thing is going to be nothing but a handrail. So I'm going to turn off my top rail, and I'm only going to use my handrail. And at the moment, this is circular cherry. So let's take a preview of that. Whoops. Let's see if I can get my 3D view. There we go. You can see it's a little bit odd of what it's looking like at the moment. So what I really need to do is change this particular handrail here as well. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to modify this, and I'm going to use the rectangular wall mount. And right now I'm just going to let it be what it's showing and apply that. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. Okay. All right. So here is this was an existing one right now that's called rectangular wall mount. It's pretty hefty. Whoops. There it goes. It's pretty hefty railing there. I could make some changes to it, but I wanted you to see these the supports that are in use at the moment, because the supports can be kind of challenging. And so let's go ahead and I'm going to edit this wall type again. Edit type. I'm going to just close my preview at the moment. Come in here to my rectangular wall mount. Notice that I'm in this separate dialog box now for rectangular wall mount. I'm going to duplicate this and call it circular wall mount. And I'm going to come in here and make some changes. So in this case, I do want to go ahead and have my fillet, and we're going to do a 4-inch fillet. I'm going to change it from the rectangular handrail to a circular handrail, depending on whatever size I want it to do. I'm going to have a simple transition. Circular and simple tends to work better. Because I've done everything else cherry, let's go ahead and make it cherry. And I will play with the extension styles in just a second. Okay, so here we go. Here's the support metal circular. We're using that. It's a fixed distance of 4 feet apart. So there's a little bit of a challenge to this, so let me just show you a couple of possibilities. I'm going to change this to a wall extension. with a 1 foot. All right, we've got our circular wall mount. All right, let's see if that's looking what we want it to be. Okay, one more thing I need to change. So you can see here's my extension on the bottom. We got a weird one. I'll show you how to get rid of that in a second. I do need to go ahead and make an extension up here on the top. So I'm tabbing through so that I'm selecting the handrail type and editing it. And what it was I didn't have my extension style at the top. And it's wall with a length of 1 foot. Let's apply that. Yeah, there we go. A little bit better. So here's the problem with the railing type and these supports. The supports are usually not in the place you want them to be. It's really kind of frustrating. Like, for example, you know, here this one is not in a good place at all because I've actually got it up against the wall. Oh, let me come in here. We can see this a little bit too. You can see here's my railing. This railing, I don't want that offset from the path. So let me fix that. Or let's see, did I get it? Or I want it -1 inch. Not -1.5. 2. So there must have been a setup in there somewhere that it was too far away from the wall. But anyway, so here's my railing coming to the wall. Well, this is certainly not the place I want this. In here, I am not seeing any of those supports because I'm in the coarse detail level. So I'm going to change this to the fine detail level, and you can see this is starting to show up. But it's still not showing everything, so there you can see where my supports are in this. So what's happening here is a double whammy. One is my view range. There we go. My view range is too short, and it's getting chopped. So I'm going to change my view range. I'm going to change this to 10 feet, and let's see, we'll do that 10 feet. So this is at where, as if you were looking at the plan of this, this is where it's being cut. So I'm going to apply that. Yeah, so now I can see all of these, at least on this side. But then again, there's still so much going on. One more little thing to help me modify this better. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to do a temporary hide isolate, and I'm going to isolate this element. So I'm just saving myself some trial and tribulation. And it didn't do what I expected. Reset temporary hide isolate. Isolate element. Where did it go? Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. It's not working. One of those things you always want to check, and it was working earlier. So anyway, I can at least see how I've got my positions here. Now, let's say for this case in this one, I don't really want that one there at all. So I can come in and select it. So I can do this in either view, by the way. I'm going to try and do it in this view. I'm going to tab through until I get just the support. And the support you can see here has a pin, and it's linked right now. So I can change or allow to change the element position. So I'm going to click on that, and I can now come in here and change the position of this element. I can actually drag it. So let's say I want it up here a little further. And so now I've got a new location for that. This one can be dragged. And again, I probably need to do some other work to get it in the exact right position for this. I just don't have time to fiddle out, but I probably need to have some reference planes or something so I can get it into the right place. If I come here and, tab through, so I'm just selecting that one, and I try and move it, you can see it's not moving. And by the way, I can, because it's still locked in there, tagged in there. So if I want to make that change, I can unlock that one, and I can come in here and start moving that one around too. Because they are connected to the railing, they are still remembering the railing information. And just one quick thing, and then we will stop this part. Let's take a look at this in elevation. So here we have hopefully some of Stephen's questions answered. It's all part of the railing. When it's coming out, you don't have to have two pieces of railing here. And then also, once to do this, I can come in and modify these. Unfortunately, putting dimensions in and trying to do direct dimension does not work well, unfortunately, using temporary dimensions. That's why I'm saying I probably would need to go ahead and put in, let's see, I'll do it right now, a reference plane where I want it to be. So there's my reference plane. And then I probably would use the align command and align it to the reference plane, which is not getting exactly what I'm expecting at the moment. There we go. Finally got it. I'm not sure why it took 3 times to get there, but that's probably what I would do to get those in place. I'd add the reference planes in and then align them. And like to get the next one up here, let's say I wanted to have another road. So let's do one more quick thing. I'll do another reference plane. I didn't get that in precise place, but I've got to come in here, tab to select just that, unlock it, and then we're going to do align to the reference plane. And I'm not positive why it's taking several steps, but it's probably something about how it's aligned to the railing too. That looks like it's about right. So a lot of information there. And like I said, we didn't get this, so you'll have to get the book, and so you'll learn how to create this particular custom railing. We did go ahead and just recap. We went through our railing types. We did the rails, the balusters, the posts. We didn't get to panels in this particular case, but hopefully that answered a lot of questions for you. And if there are other questions before we can go on and cover our information.
Thank you, Martha. I just want to remind everyone that this is from all the content you took, and you just covered part of probably, I don't know how much of Chapter 7, maybe a small part of it?
One topic.
5
pages.
Okay, there we go. Oh, wow. And this was from the Autodesk Revit BIM Management Template and Family Creation Learning Guide, correct?
Yes.
And the 2018 version is available now for purchase, and earlier versions. 2019, just to remind you, will be available, we think, early September, right, Martha?
Yes, hopefully in September anyway.
Yeah. So I just wanted to show this screen to everyone to say, if you're not familiar with our products, or just to remind you, this is how we, what we do. We offer books, printed books, which we call learning guides. We also have that content in an ebook format. And all of our books are great for self-taught users. They're also great for instructor-led classes. So, the same content in there. We also have instructor guides as well. So if you are teaching the course, teaching the class, that is what you will want to get, because then it includes all the answers to the questions and timing suggestions. So it'll tell you, Martha will say, oh, you'll want to spend approximately this much time on Chapter 7. This is obviously a good chapter there with lots of content in there and lots of questions that people had. So it gives you all that information if you buy the instructor guide. If you want to purchase really large quantities, for a school or for your corporation, we have digital site licenses where you can print the materials yourself. We give you control over that. So just wanted to show you our last slide, I believe it is, with all of our contact information. Here we go. So everything that, these books I've been talking about, people are asking where are they from. They're from ASCENT. And I don't know if you can highlight there on the top left. We've got our website, ascented.com, ascented.com. Perfect. So you can purchase everything from there, or if you are already familiar with our e-store, you can go directly to the ascentestore.com and purchase from there as well. Our phone number is there. We'll leave this slide up for a little bit. Feedback@ascented.com is there. So if we don't get to your question today, or you have another question, please do email us at that email address. We'll make sure that Martha gets it. And we're all over social media. So as Martha mentioned, there were a lot of questions that came in after we had our first session. We'll try to get to some of those today as well, but I will send all of them to Martha today, and she will cover them in a follow-up blog post. So if you're not already following us, please make sure that you do that or check it out regularly. Easiest way to get to it is to go to the ASCENT Ed website, and right on the home page there's a section for our blogs, and you can just click on it, and it'll take you right there. And so we usually have all of our authors who do presentations like this. We'll follow up afterwards. Martha, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation.